Chiron is retrograding through the 16th degree of Aries. It began its process of retrogradation around the 21st of July. So it's just getting up speed, going backwards. And the forward journey started last Christmas, and it continues now in a retrogradation process until next Christmas. So there's this annual sense of a waveform coming forward through all of the Sabian degrees, stationary for a moment, and then going backwards, like a very slow and dignified wave that comes forward up the beach and then is sucked back down into the oneness of the ocean and then comes forward again. Now, if we study the planets in that way, we get a deeper sense of how they operate. Chiron brings us to a new perception. We can think of it as the wounded healer, which is one example of a new perception. That's how the healing occurs. You just change your mind about that which happened to you. Instead of calling it a wound, you call it a gift, a teaching, a lesson. That changes so much. It changes how you think. And how you think is all and everything. So it is true for sure that Chiron is the wounded healer, changing the woundedness into the ability to heal and teach, particularly. But it is not only that. Chiron is the agency through which we learn how to shift perception. I'm perceiving something this way, and now I'm perceiving it that way. That gift is of Chiron. That's really the fundamental lesson of Chiron. How to change your mind. Now, it's hard to think of anything more important, isn't it? How to change your mind. Your mind is that which creates everything. And if you want to change your life circumstances, then you're going to have to change your mind. It can precede the event, or it can be a result of the event, but until you change your circumstances and your mind, you haven't embodied the new life that you've chosen. So, how do we change our minds? Let's think about what the mind is. I'm not going to get technical and scientific, but the brain is physical, and the mind is like the software. And the mind can cut channels in the operation of the brain in terms of the inclination of a particular neural pathway to do a certain thing every time. So if you see a sensory experience, like a bell ringing, one of your synapses or a set of synapses clicks into place automatically. And you salivate if you're a dog. This was what Pavlov was doing, a Russian scientist. He trained dogs to salivate at the sound of the bell rather than the smell of the food. And what we have been doing to ourselves all of our lives is training the neural pathways into a certain pattern of being. And it's very difficult to untrain them. So we don't do that. What we do is train them to do something differently. If when you have, let's say, a certain event occurs which reminds you, perhaps even unconsciously, of a childhood trauma, you're going to get that every time. So if somebody shouts, you feel frightened. Well, sometimes it's a good idea to be frightened if somebody's shouting, but not very often. Very, very, very few times does somebody shouting cause you any harm at all. It just doesn't. So this is an inappropriate response. Now you can retrain that by a process, a very definite process to take the sensory input, in this case of a shout, and turn it into a different response. You can train yourself to respond differently. This is one of the most powerful healing techniques that I've learned, and I teach it or use it very frequently. So this operation of changing how you think, changing how you react, this is Chiron. Now we're studying that process. The exercise I've just mentioned isn't the only way to do that. The most basic way of doing it is just to use willpower to behave differently, just to decide not to react and to do something different. So that's what we're discussing here in most cases. Now Chiron is moving into the 16th degree of Aries. We need to consider what that means. The brownies dancing in the setting sun. Let me read it for you. The deep mystical resonance with life. When the body is weakened by illness, fasting, or sensory deprivation, this allows our subtle body of light to resonate with nature spirits. Fasting, illness allows this. We are more in tune with some subtle reality when we are not feeding our own body with health and strength and vigor. Very interesting. And this is known in the Native American tradition. This is the shamanic practice of vision questing, where you fast and you go and have a vision. In other words, you tune into nature spirits. And on retreat, on Sufi retreat, you don't get very much food. You're hungry at the beginning and then not hungry anymore, and the little bit of food you're offered you don't want, because you're feeding on something else, and you're then aware of these beings that exist in a different realm. You somehow find yourself able to cross over into another realm of being, which is called in Sufism, the astral plane. By doing this, we become stronger and gain potential. This is the fasting and so on, which is important for both recuperation and taking further initiative to extend our influence. So this is all about tuning into nature spirits and the deep mystical awareness of essence, helped by becoming like a child and trusting the non-rational aspect of intelligence. So Chiron is saying, look, if you want to deal with your emotional process and your limitations in life and your fears and your wounds and so on, if you want to deal with this, fine, no problem. You've got to change the way you think. How do you do that? Well, let's just begin this exercise where we open up to nature spirits. That's what it's telling us now, this particular degree. Find those nature spirits in your life. Open up the subtle mind and look for beings of light in non-physical realms. You have to overcome the conditioning of childhood, where most people say, no, they don't exist. And for those people that told you that, they don't exist. Partly because they're affirming it by saying they don't exist, partly because they can't see them. It doesn't mean that we can't see them just because they can't. And it may be that you had childhood experiences, and maybe you're still having experiences now where you're seeing things or you're feeling things. That's probably more typical. Or you're aware of things without either seeing it or feeling it, just some direct knowledge. And like, you get something's there. You just know, and you can't model it on anything because the mind is being told, no, there isn't anything there. Everything that is real can be seen and measured. That's what we've been conditioned into believing. So we have to undo that conditioning. Chiron's job. And in this particular case, right, let's open up to the fairies, to the elves, to the unicorns, to the mythical realm that's real, just not physical. Now, I spent a lot of time working with this within the Elven Star work, where we affirm the existence of these beings. Elves, for example, being one of the highest, if not the highest form. And little by little, we've opened up this facility of knowing how to feel the moment. And you have to trust that there's a part of you still like a child, still awe-inspired by everything. It reminds me of the Kogi people. This is a tribe living in South America, and certain children are raised away from the light. They're brought up in the darkness of a cave, and there's candles and things, but they're told about life outside, about trees and monkeys and butterflies and snakes. They're told about that for a long time, 16 years. This is a very profound shamanic training. And then on a certain date, they're taken outside and they're shown for the first time in their lives what conceptually they've understood. And it's so overwhelming that they're shocked into an awakened state of mind. So even though they knew everything about the world outside, because people have been telling them day after day after day after day for 16 years, nevertheless, it does not compare to the experience that we have when we tune into this realm. So tuning into this realm is that which shifts our awakened thinking. We see things differently now. We think differently. We look back in at our life experiences and what we think happened to us. And we actually realize that's not what happened. That's what we were told was happening, but it's not actually what was happening. We've been told something that wasn't true. And we can look back at, for example, the wound that we are said to have had. Now, let's think about that. As souls, we have consciousness, and we incarnate knowing the circumstances of our lives. Not necessarily all of the details, we have to play with that, but we do know that we're incarnating into a situation where ever so soon after birth, we're going to be in the company of insensitive people that have no idea about what we are and what we can feel, because they've forgotten. They were the same, but they forgot. And they don't treat us with the level of sensitivity and awareness that we actually needed to feel good. Now, we knew that. We knew that was going to happen before incarnating. And we incarnated into exactly that scenario because we wanted what is being called the wound. We wanted that experience. And this is a very subtle understanding. And if you get this, you can get rid of your self-pity and you can reclaim the power that you are meant to claim. Because the understanding is this, that if you want to learn a skill or a power or an awareness, you can only do that by claiming it. You can't learn it third hand. Nobody can tell you or explain something to the nth degree. You have to experience it. That's when you get the nth degree of knowledge. So you can only experience the healing or teaching of a situation by pulling yourself out of that potential damage. So you came here to be wounded in order to heal that wound. Think about that. You incarnated in order to be wounded so that you could employ the only technique possible to learn how to heal that wound. And then you will find, when you go through this exercise, you will find that knowing how to heal that wound is the platform for your life journey. You needed that skill. So the wound that you think you had wasn't done to you. It was attracted by you in order for you to heal it. And Chiron is saying, right, well, get on with it then. Heal it now. And start explaining how you've done that to other people. And Chiron is saying in the 16th degree of Aries, look, there's all these nature spirits around you, and they'll help. They'll help you to heal. They'll help you to understand. And they want to help. They're there. Just look for them. Give them names. Call them. Pray with them. Call them into your life. And you will find your life is suddenly supported by a spiritual presence that it's been there all the time, but you've only just awakened to.
Can you remember the playful innocence of childhood? And if not from your own childhood, then maybe from a child you've witnessed, or even just children laughing in a playground or a park. There's a curiosity and a joyful approach to life. And that's our default setting when we let go of all of our cares and worries, all of the layers of societal conditioning that we hold. And it's a remembrance of this state that this symbol is reminding us of. And it begins our journey of connecting back to our inner child and allows that potential state to be more present in our adult life, our everyday life. It's the careful and joy-free abandon as we dance before the setting sun, and we can feel the warmth of the day still present on our skin. The in-betwixt time where it's not quite light and it's not quite dark, and the brownies and the nature spirits come out to play, capturing in this moment the wonder and the magic of the normally unseen and unacknowledged.